Good morning. It's Born at westcoastbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. We are going to be doing a video on a new bat system that Bill has figured out with artisanpotterytools.com, and it's based on a regular bat with mini bats. So I want to show you this because I think it might be quite useful. What he has is these tiny little bats, and he's done some experimental sizing. So I think these are like 4.5 inches across. I think these ones are 5 inches across. So basically it'll be a quick way of putting one on the actual wheel and basically throwing a pop, and then basically off it comes. Probably use a little scraper like this to push underneath, and basically just kind of quickly make some pots. So I'm going to check and make sure this is all in order, and then we'll throw some. I've got a wheel, sponge, pin, wooden rib, metal rib. Sounds like I'm going into orbit. Check, check, check. Okay, so I cut my clay up from a block, and I don't usually bang it into a round ball. But if you're a beginner, you should, because it's a lot easier to center a piece of clay like this than a square block. Just like you do when you're throwing, I would assume that we have to basically dampen it. It's made out of some sort of plastic. I'm not sure what kind of wall board this would be, but put it on. This is the tiny one. So it doesn't really affect me centering. I was interested to see how it sticks to the actual, the clay sticking to a surface. Because with this plastic product, if it's only got degreaser on it or anything from when they were making them, it would be resistant to the actual clay from sticking, but it didn't. So that's one good test. I should have coned this up. I just realized I shouldn't have just opened it up. But we'll make a pot without coning. If you're a beginner, you probably should cone the clay a little bit first. Now, one thing I just noticed is I'm used to going to a certain level. Okay, the one thing that I remember when I was throwing these balls is the first time I put a piece of clay down onto the plastic, it's brand new, and I think when you produce this product, the actual plastic sheets, they probably have some sort of film that actually is sort of like a residue that's left on the surface, and I did not wash these bats before I used them, and so I found it a little difficult to make the clay stick to the bat for the first time. And I threw a lot of pieces in this day using these bats, and even the next day, and so that it resolved itself after multiple uses of the bats. It was all gone. So I think when you first throw on these, you've got to be aware that the clay, probably don't use water when you actually stick the piece down. Get your clay and bang it down really hard onto the bat, and that'll probably help it stick straight away. But I did feel like the clay was moving a little bit underneath while I was centering, and then even when I was doing a pull, I just felt like it might release a little bit. And the other thing I wanted to say is that when you do pull a wall on these little bats tend to lift a little bit. If you actually try pulling a great big thick piece of clay up the wall, it's better to pull up the wall with smaller pulls until you've evened the wall out a little bit. When you stick your fingers underneath for that first pull, you usually push your fingers right in on the outside, and you feel that lump of clay above your finger. Well, if you get too big a lump of clay above your finger, it can actually lift the bat a little bit. So be aware that you want to make sure when you're doing that first pull, you don't press your fingers in too deeply. And now enjoy watching a little ball being thrown. Now this is a very porcelain style clay. It's very similar to B-Mix 5 as far as it's a how you throw it. So there's not any grog in this clay. I haven't finished yet. I'm going to try and get it even lower, but I'm going to get the water out now before I even take it down a bit more. Because I want to see just if I can get a really low down bowl. I like my other wheel for throwing too, because on this wheel I was leaning out one time and I started overbalancing. I thought I was going to fall off my wheel. I'm on a high chair on this wheel, and the wheel is raised up on a platform about 16 inches, 17 inches above the ground, so I can be level with the customers when I'm demoing my pottery throwing. See how far this one's hanging out? And that's where I think this will be a useful tool as a bat system. Because when I lift these off the wheel, they tend to bend a lot. This center, it's nice if the center of the bowl is kind of smooth. Gosh, just caught it with my fingernail. I made it nice and smooth and then caught it. How many times have you all done that? Okay, let's put a little spiral in here. I think the customers like to see that at the bottom of the bowl. I'm making this hang out so far that I'm not going to use a leather on it, and I don't need to because this clay is porcelain and it's so smooth. But I'm trying to get down even lower. I want to see how far it can go, since I'm not going to have any issue about lifting it up. How far did we get out there? Well, that's quite a long way. I don't want to be crazy about it. So what did I do? Now I have this little tool, which I use for another different bat system. But this will probably work just fine. Oh, look at that. It's so low I can barely get my hand under it. Okay. So, look at that. Totally flat. No distortion whatsoever. So that's a pretty nice feature of these little tiny bats. And so they'd be neat for any open form like this. Little trays, little tiny, trinket dishes, anything you just want to throw as a flat form. That's just a small, tiny plate basically. You can just throw these and then just lift them off like that. No distortion. Now I will probably burnish the rim on this with my pebble when I'm trimming. But I'm going to put that little spiral in there again. I haven't done any tests using strontium crystal magic for a long time. I might do that again. Alright, so I don't think there's any water left on the outside of that since I was using the rib, but this lifts up. It's very easy. That's a long way out. It's way out, man. There you go. So we know this works great. I wonder if Bill ever sleeps coming up with all these ideas. Just wakes up in the middle of the night and says, yeah, I could make that. Thanks, Bill. So I'm going to put you on stop motion. You can just watch me throw a few, but I'm going to throw, I think, about 20 of these. Okay, that was on stop motion for you. Save a bit of time for you there. Now I'm just going to try to lift this because I did this one a little different. I made like a bowl area here which finishes and then it flattens out a bit more up there. So that's really hanging out a long way now. So it's pushing them to the limits now with this. And see, lifting it up, it didn't distort at all. And you can barely tell that difference, but if maybe you can see it in the light, I'm not sure, but there's a bowl and then it has a sort of flat area. I may have to flatten the rim on this a little bit later on, but it's hanging out a long way. Okay, this bowl I've opened up the same as the other ones, and now I've created a bowl in the center and I'm flattening the rim about 2.5 centimeters down to give that real kind of, there's a bowl with a flat rim on top, and I don't know how far I can take this down with before it collapsing, but I'm taking it as far as I can get where I feel like it might collapse and then stop. And then when I pull this off the wheel normally, I'd have to lift it off or leave it on a big bat. It takes up the use of my big bats then for a while. So basically on a small bat like this, I'm able to lift it off without any distortion. Get the water off it, it helps with it drying. I'm going to put a little spiral in there again. Especially with that Tenmoku gold and the bright blue or the dark blue, variegated blue, any of those blues make it look like a universe kind of thing, the cosmos. But look how flat that rim is. Now it's where the rib, there's definitely an edge there, like a corner, which I will have to burnish off because I don't want the glaze to run off away from that corner. I like it to cover it, so that's what the little burnishing does. But look how flat that is. And of course it will rise because of the drying process. But we have that flat rim and it didn't distort at all. So that is a great use of this bat when you want to do something like, and these are super thin too. Okay, these are all the ones I just threw. I've been interrupted a lot today, so it's a Saturday and it's been very busy. But these are all thrown very thin. So now what I'm going to do is weigh one of the plastic bats, and then I'm going to weigh the thing with the pot on it and see how much clay I used. Okay, this piece is 1 pound 4 ounces, 0.1 of course, but 1 pound 4 ounces minus the weight of the bat. Which weighs 2.3, so that means it's 1 pound 2 ounces, just under, say 1 pound 1.7 ounces. So under 16 plus 8 plus 2, sorry, 16 plus 2 is 18 ounce piece. So that is a pretty big bowl. But where the diameter is, make sure I don't catch it because it's really thin, is 9 3/8. So it's 9 3/8 inches across by 4 inches high, minus the bat of course, which is 1/4 inches, so it's 3 3/4 inches high. So that'll give you an idea of what size you can get and still get it off the actual bat without denting or warping it. It's just completely, I could put it back on the wheel now, it would just be completely centered. Hasn't done anything. So this is great for these big delicate pieces. You can get them off without any distortion. Okay, I have to cut through these. The rim is now firm, so I wouldn't want to bend it at this point. So all I do is transfer it by cutting through. Rest it on my hand. Sometimes you need to cut through twice though. There you go, it's released. And then now the rim hasn't gone through any distortion at all. Put it down, it's completely round. I've been making these little sugar jars, and they have to have a lid. And making a lid and then making knobs to put on the lid has always been quite time consuming. You can actually try throwing it with a thick piece of clay, or you can actually attach separate little knobs. But I decided to try this bat system, which I've been throwing all these pieces on. I've been doing it all afternoon. I've got 20 sugar jars made, and I did about 16 of the balls. And now I'm going to do the lids. It's getting a bit late, but I'm going to do it. And I decided I would throw the knob as part of the lid and then just trim it down very easily on the trimming wheel when they're dry enough. So I just threw this lid, and I left a really thick base here. Even lower this down a bit more. So that's really flat, and I can trim underneath a bit and make that knob out of this, and I don't have to worry about, just get that little sharp bit off the edge there. And let's see if I can lower it down a little flatter. There we go. So look, it's not collapsing, and I've got it really flat, so that should make a nice lid. I haven't measured it because I will just cut off what's too much. But when I lift this off here, all I have to do is put this under there, lift it up, and this is from doing sheetrocking, for making corners with grout and stuff. You just get it at the hardware store. It's been perfect for this because it's got a little angle in the actual thing, so you put it underneath and just simply pick up like that, and look at that, flat, no worry about it collapsing. All right, so these are great bats for that purpose as well. So when I was throwing on the discs, I'm always used to putting things on these larger bats for carrying around because it speeds things up. And I was able to do the discs on here. I'd normally get 5 lids on a bat, but I could get 4, so it's not that much slower. And then of course I just cut through them as I normally would. And the great thing about this bat system is the rim didn't have to be distorted when I lifted it off, so it's totally flat. And I'm going to be trimming these to size for these jars behind here. And I used way too much clay when I was doing these, so I got masses to trim off there. Next time I'll realize I've got to use less clay. Okay, here's the lid sitting on top, and it is too big, as I've said I don't measure. So I just kind of make a guess at how much shorter I have to make it. So take an X-Acto knife or another pin, whatever you want to cut with. It should be through by now. Yep. And I will clean this up a little bit later on. Put it in there, and then because the pot is still stuck to the bat where I threw it, and I've put the actual bat on here on the pins on my trimming wheel, which is just the same as my throwing wheel. They're both Shimpos. that's not too proportions seem to be right. If you want to make some sort of stamp in the top there, you could. I'm just going to put a little spiral in to catch the glaze. And then using the chattering tool, sorry. Just enough to catch the glaze. Maybe I'll do an extra ring. Actually, just to find that a little better. And I'll put an extra little ring there. That'll catch the glaze too. So because of these things stuck on the back, I have to clean up the rim a little bit afterwards. But I'll let it firm up a little bit before I do that. And but that's a fairly easy way. Throwing the lids with the knob on, trimming it to the right angle, sort of proportion, and then all you do is you take it off again. So it was quite an easy way of making these jaws, and I'll have to trim them a little bit on the rim of the actual lid to round it off a little bit, but basically it's ready to cut off this bat now because we don't need to do any more to the top part. I should have an extra line there too. See, there's a little sharpness in the lid. I've got it when it's a bit firmer. It's very dry. You could sponge that off. That would be fine too. But I want to make sure they're a good size so that the glaze can add thickness without making the lid not fit. So the jaws have been chattered on the lids, the knob is on. We still have to clean up the edge there and trim the bottom of the piece as well. So back to the giffing grip. And so that's what you get. Still going to have to trim the lid a little bit. Okay, I'm trying my microphone. Somebody said it was too quiet, so I bought this microphone that is supposed to cut out background noise. So now I've removed the cut out background noise feature, so it's just on normal, and we'll see whether the wheel sound, and I have a fan running in the background over my kiln, exhaust fan, so basically those noises just can't be erased. We'll see how it works. But anyway, these are the balls that I did on those little tiny bats. So I'm trimming them as normal. Now, I was aware when I was throwing on those little tiny bats that my sort of training from my eye and my hand has been using regular bats, and the little tiny bat raises the level about 1/4 inch. So I know that I was trying to leave enough to actually make sure I didn't trim through them and make the base too thin, because my eye was just been trained to use a regular bat. So that's my worry about trimming these. So I'm just not going to trim too much off, I guess, in the center there, until I think I'm actually compensating for that extra 1/4 inch of height in the bat. I think we all worry about that anyway. After all these years of trimming, it's still a sort of shock when you've trimmed through one and you think, oh, how did I make that stupid mistake? And there's the mark you get with an actual square edge. So let me show you a bit close up. There you go. So now you can see whether you prefer round or square. I like both. Okay, I'm going to try this without the microphone on, and I've got a really nice ball here. It was one of the furthest ones hanging out. It's all about the speed, the angle, and the pressure. And so I'm used to doing this now, so I'm going to hold it gentle and then increase the pressure. There you go, so you got like an angled chatter. And then this one is the square one, so let's go with the red one though. The red one's a little bit more, so both square-ended tools here. A bit better, yeah. And then always just brush off using my really nice brush that I shouldn't be using. Oh. Do I need to do any redefinitions? I don't think so. So here. Okay, this is one of the more rounded forms that I did just to play around and see what I can get. And that's what it looks like. So it's really nice chattering. Like I said, when I finished these, because the rim was very thin, I didn't do a leather over it, which I don't have to with this clay type anyway. I just use my pebble over the rim like that, and it just smooths it out and makes it really rounded. Only when it's got a little bit of moisture in it, not when it's bone dry, it would be hard. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Maybe the rim has a little glint. It's nice anyway. Well, at the end of the day, I threw 18 tankards. I wanted to get like a third layer of pieces thrown on these small bats to sort of find out whether that slipperiness would go away, and it did. I mean, basically, these bats had a little clay left on them. I didn't even wipe it off. I just threw straight onto them, and there was no problem with it lifting again. I do recommend when you do a pull, though, I like to put my little finger down onto the wheel on my right hand as I've got my two fingers pulling, pressing deep into the clay and then pulling up. So I held my little finger down onto the little bat, and that stops it from moving up a little bit if you're pulling a really thick piece of clay up the wall and all that. So and once you get too far, so your little finger lifts off the bat, usually by then it's not too bad anyway. So it worked really good. I'm impressed, and I'm glad I've got these for future use. I'll be using them a lot, and it's going to speed up my throwing as well.